this is incredibly disappointing for a lot of reasons. I think just to start, big picture college football, it's disappointing from that point of view that we don't get, whether you are part of Notre Dame or Southern Cal, but just a fan of college football, you don't get one of the most storied, greatest rivalries in college football. This has now stopped, and this has been a rivalry that for the jeweled shillelagh has endured world wars. With the exception of missing like one of those years in there, I believe, for World War II. But this dates back to 1926. We missed the year for COVID in 2020. That's it. Those are the only two times that this game has not been played, and it all came down to world events. And so you have to ask yourself, what's changed that has made one of the two sides want to now no longer play this game? Notre Dame's remained independent. And even though if you go through the history of college football, there's been less and less teams that were independent that have now joined conferences, that's still been the one constant. So there's a lot of people who, when I look at like what's changed on the SC side, where it's, well, you went from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten. So that's obviously changed. You've changed your athletic director since the start of the millennium a number of times. I believe, Notre Dame's changed, 2 or 3? That's it. Head coaches, obviously, Southern Cal's run through a bunch of head coaches. They've now had Lincoln Riley for a while. I don't know that anyone's really excited about Lincoln Riley with the performance he's done there so far. So if you look at the origin of how this started, it really starts back with the lack of success by Southern Cal and Lincoln Riley not equating to the success that was hoped for, maybe even promised, but at least touted upon his signing by Mike Bone, the former athletic director. And then as Lincoln Riley brought up the idea of not playing this game altogether, because don't get it twisted, no one else brought this up publicly but Lincoln Riley. It followed their inability while in the Pac-12 and he was there with a Heisman Trophy winner at quarterback to win that conference and get to the playoff when it was 4 teams. And so now you fast forward to the expanded at 12 teams, moving to the Big Ten, still haven't been a part of it. And so this, to me, truly boils down to a lack of success, a lack of achieving what Southern Cal hopes to achieve. And it does come off as extremely cowardice to want to turn this rivalry down because you've had a lack of success. And now you want to say, well, it might hurt or be to our detriment to get in the playoff. So what? Like, at no point in the history of this program, and it's hit some low points, but at no point have you ducked the rivalry until now, until this guy? It's crazy to me. And Jen Cohen, their athletic director, who I like a lot, she can defend Lincoln Riley as a head coach all she wants. This is also on her hands. And I can assure you from the Notre Dame side of things, it was even kicked around to be an opener to begin the season. And I guess Southern Cal didn't even want to do that. Which you could look throughout their non-conference scheduling throughout the years. They've maybe had I think they had the Bama game, remember? I forget how long ago that was to start a season. That went awful for them.
Yeah.
But it's not like Notre Dame's scared. They start off. Yeah. But it's not like Notre Dame's scared to schedule a tough, opening weekend opponent. Don't have to look any further than Miami to start this past season. That's more been the norm, I would say, for Notre Dame in their scheduling because they're they're not in a conference. Everyone forces them to probably play a much difficult game to start the season than most teams would like. But again, the reality is, however it fell through, it's disappointing. And Notre Dame has to fill their schedule. They're an independent. This sort of thing happens. They were banking on SC being that final game for the 2026-2027 season. Instead, they found a BYU program that is also disappointed they got left out. That's been competitive in the Big 12. And has a governor that wants to talk a lot of trash. So FAFO, you will find out here in the next couple of years for you BYU fans. You want that matchup? guess what? No one's going to do it on ESPN's terms. Notre Dame, BYU do it on their own terms. NBC will get a game, and then potentially Fox being a part of the Big 12, and however that game would be divvied up out there in Provo. But I look at this and I go, it's incredibly disappointing for everyone involved around college football, because we're starting to see like the foundation of what has been one of the greatest sports this world's seen, and it's being just chipped away slowly. And this is one of those chips taken away.
I wonder with all of the guys that have voiced their outrage and disgust, and this is both sides. This is not a one-sided thing. Like I said, I threw Keyshawn Johnson's name out there. There are guys that are voicing their opinions, and they are very, very strong and very harsh opinions. In fact, to the tune of, these are non-USC people making USC decisions. Now, with that being said, they're not non-USC people. They've been hired, so they're representing the interest of USC. But I understand where he's coming from with basically saying, if you're making these decisions, you're clearly not taking into consideration the historical value of what the rivalry and what the game represents. I mean, am I naive to wonder, can this be stopped, or is it's just gone? Like 2030, this is it.
2030 is the earliest that I've.
This is it.
Seen. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it's really unfortunate. I think it's really sad. I know I felt this way about when Pitt and Penn State stopped playing, and even with that, it doesn't match the level of historic value connected to this rivalry game in particular. I don't know. I can understand strategically trying to make decisions that are going to make a season better for you, which can ultimately impact your bottom line. But there are some things that just should never be changed. That Michigan should always play Ohio State. West Virginia should always play Pitt. Oklahoma should always play who's the Red River rivalry?
There's Texas and there's Texas and Oklahoma State, but yeah.
Texas and I mean, listen, there's a couple where the Red River rivalry should always be there. They should always play that one. And I just think there's a couple games, Army, Navy. Imagine that. And that to me is the capacity of doing away with this game. Like, imagine if you're like, yeah, Army and Navy's not going to play this year. They're not going to play until 2030. That's it. It's, I don't know, man. It's for purists, which that's what I would consider myself for college football. It just seems like that's a tremendous miss. And how could you be the decision makers involved with that and actually be okay with making that decision?
It's disrespectful to history. It's also it shows a short-sighted view on college football today and sports today, because sports today and college football today wouldn't be where it's at if not for games like that. If not for the history of the sport, of both programs, of the rivalries that you mentioned. And so if that's the case, what's next? Yeah. Like, everything's going to be got to have it now, in the moment. I get you want to look forward, you want to look towards the future, but in order to appreciate all that, you've got to have appreciation for the past, and nobody seems to have it now. It's unfortunate.
Don't say nobody.
What's interesting from the SC side of things is there's fans who are like, oh, it's on them. They want to, schedule an easier. It's like, no one's asking to schedule an easier schedule. This came up a lot during the college football debate, but are people aware? And by the way, for all the douchebags on social media who get upset when I try to educate you on something, kick back, have another drink. All right, we don't know where Lee is still, but just try to learn something. All right? Maybe you can get out of that gutter. These schedules are made minimum 8 years out. So, for example, Notre Dame did bring back the rivalry with Michigan. People are like, oh, they dropped the rivalry with Michigan. It's coming back. It's 2033, 2034, somewhere in that capacity. Like, that's coming back. They've scheduled Texas. They've scheduled like a lot of these big brands that are, either winning a SEC championship or competing for it. Like, they haven't ducked anyone. They had a home and home with Georgia. I mean, you go through their schedule. The one criticism that you honestly could make is the partial affiliation with the ACC in an era which, by the way, when they've done it, it obviously made it extremely more difficult for their men's basketball program. I mean, Notre Dame's basketball program was more competitive back when they were in the Big East, and the Big East was something to be had for. Back when you're playing in that particular conference, when it was what it was. Now you're in the ACC. It's a whole different can of worms trying to compete within the ACC, and they've been at times competitive. But the point is, football has been down. I mean, this is really one of the first years Miami's back. They've won their first round playoff game. Like, they won a college football playoff game before Miami's won an ACC championship. Think about that for a second. Like, if you want to look at the ACC and how it's down, Florida State. Again, this is not the Florida State that Jameis Winston led, a team that could win a national championship that was one of the better in college football history. We're a decade removed from that. And you could point back to the 13-0 team that got robbed. They would have gotten stomped in the 14 playoff. They got stomped by Georgia. They didn't make it. So spare me that argument. But if you look at the ACC, that's been probably the biggest detriment they faced, is that conference hasn't been great. They're playing 5 teams a year, which is part of their scheduling. But surrounding those 5 teams, they have continued to schedule SC. They have continued to schedule some of the other programs that have been traditional rivals. You can't make up for them not being better. You look at Ohio State's schedule this past year, you could have been really critical of their strength of schedule. Who was their best opponent? Texas? When it boils down to it, like, that was Ohio State's biggest game in the regular season. We kept talking about how they weren't tested. Well, it's not their fault things fell by the wayside for Penn State, or it's not their fault things didn't work out for some of the other teams. That stuff happens. They'll build back up. I'm a believer Penn State's going to be, I don't know if it's next year or the year after, they'll be right back in contention for the Big Ten. They'll be right back contending for trying to compete for a national championship again, like they were, 2 seasons ago, playing the semifinal. So it's weird that people tend to think like Notre Dame's making the schedule out every year. They're trying to manipulate it. It's like, no, dude, SC was scared. They're tired of losing. They feel like it's too tough. So they had to backfill in now with a BYU game. Like, that's how this works. And if you don't believe for me, like, listen to SC folks, how they feel about this rivalry not being there.
Here was Keyshawn Johnson.
I don't understand what our athletic department or administration or board of trustees, board of regents, whatever you want to call it, what the hell are they doing? We running from teams now? We running from Notre Dame? Hell, why don't we run from Oregon and Michigan and Ohio State and Wisconsin? Why don't we just not be in the conference? Why don't we pull that move and just play Sacramento State? Why don't we play them type of teams? UC Davis? Because that's what we want to do. This is crazy. It really is crazy if you think about it. Michigan, Ohio State, one of the biggest rivalries in football. Alabama, Auburn. Okay? They ain't canceling that. Why would we cancel our biggest rivalry because we can't beat them? It's ridiculous. It makes zero sense, man. It's just hard to support this program. It's hard. It's really hard to support this program when we keep on doing this type of stuff, this behavior.
And keep in mind, that is literally one of the greatest players to play for USC.
And keep in
Let's
mind
keep
this.
that in mind.
And keep in mind this. That's coming from a player who never beat Notre Dame during his time there. They lost in 1995. They got beat bad. In 94, I believe it ended in a tie. So you kind of go back through and, yeah, there's stretches where one side's been dominant over the other. And that's the reality of it. Like, you look at 1983 to 1995, which was during that period of time, I believe Notre Dame was like 12-0-1. And SC didn't try to skirt out of it then. During my era against them. That was the greatest era ever of Southern Cal football.
Y'all
We
didn't
beat
run.
them.
Right.
No, we didn't run. Every single year. You know what we did? Every single year, we looked up for that opportunity. I mean, arguably one of the greatest games that we ever played that's been played was, the whole 05 Notre Dame SC game.
The tush push.
I won money on that game.
And that's
you?
where, like,
Yeah.
you lose a little bit of just the under. And again, I honestly feel like it's part of, like, the younger generations now too. They have no appreciation for what Jonas said. The history that has built this game, that has got us to this point. They look back and they just push it to the wayside.
They don't know it, Q. They don't know it.
It's not even that they don't know it. They don't care to know it, and they don't realize that the importance and significance of it. Yeah. That's what I think bothers me the most about it, is like, we are to this point because of what's been done before you, what previous men and women have built before you.